Welcome back to Nails Before Films. I don't really have anything I want to review right now, so I decided to talk about some news while doing some nails that are vaguely inspired by the topic. This news is quite old, but it's something that has been on my mind. I'm talking about Rooster Teeth shutting down. I used to be a huge RT fan. I have the box set of RVB seasons 1 through 10, the steelbook of the Chorus trilogy, the special edition of season 14, and the fan guidebook. I also have a couple of Ruby Blu-rays that I didn't bother to dig out. As you can tell from the title, I don't care about RT that much anymore, so I couldn't be bothered to come up with complicated designs. I just did some ombre nails loosely based on their content. This one is RVB and these ones are Ruby. Anyway, let's get into the actual news. For those who don't know, Rooster Teeth was a pioneer of internet content, from animation, podcasts, and gaming to live action skits and shows. They had a wide variety of web series you could watch on YouTube for free. Besides their most popular animated series Red vs. Blue and Ruby, their gaming channels, such as Achievement Hunter, have also been huge successes. However, their viewership has declined over the years, along with numerous controversies and scandals. Honestly, the news of them shutting down came as no surprise to anyone who followed them. And what's more tragic is that most people met this news with indifference, including myself. Today, I'll go through how I became a Rooster Teeth fan, why I've fallen out of love with them, and what I believe to be the reasons for their downfall. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I was a long-time fan of RT. I only started watching their content 6 or 7 years ago, around the time when Ruby Volume 5 was going on. Like a lot of people, I learned about RT because of Ruby. A YouTuber I watched during that time recommended it, and since it was free on YouTube, I gave it a try. While it was rough around the edges, I thought it was pretty well made for a free web series. After Ruby, I got into RVB as well, and I actually liked them more than Ruby. While I loved the simple hilarity of the earlier seasons, the change to a more serious story and better animation was welcome too. I was impressed by how RVB went from a few Halo guys talking with their heads bobbing up and down to a show with endearing characters, awesome animation, and genuinely emotional scenes, all the while still being funny. I began consuming even more RT content after that. I watched their live action shorts, I watched Camp Camp, I watched X-Ray and Vav, I watched their game show, I watched RT Animated Adventure, I watched RT Live, I watched Achievement Hunter from time to time, I listened to their podcast from time to time. You get the idea. So while I didn't grow up with RT, I was indeed a big fan of theirs during that time. Little did I know that it would only last for 3 years. When I started watching RT, they had already begun moving stuff to their own website. While you could still watch it on YouTube, you could watch it a week earlier on their website and another week earlier if you purchased their membership. I didn't have a problem with this because casual fans could still watch the series on YouTube just a bit late. However, they began to push it further and further after that. Soon, you had to wait a year for the episodes to be uploaded on YouTube. And after that, they removed Ruby from YouTube entirely. This was already frustrating for many people, and to make it worse, their website was terrible. I tried watching the new seasons on their website, but it took forever to load, and the video quality was awful. I imagine that many casual viewers tapped out during this period because, let's be honest, RT's content wasn't something that people were dying to watch. A huge chunk of their audience, like me, only watched them because it was easy to access on YouTube for free. I imagine many of their YouTube audience never bothered to go to their website. Even if they did, they were possibly quickly turned off by the poor quality. Many of these issues would be salvageable if their content was good, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. For Ruby, many fans didn't like the direction they were going with after the tragic demise of the series creator Monty Ohm. I personally found seasons 4 and 5 tolerable, but I completely understand why fans were starting to be displeased with the show. RVB also suffered a similar fate. After the acclaimed Chorus trilogy concluded, the next season, season 14, was an anthology series While some episodes were well received, fans generally thought the season as a whole to be pointless. And to be honest, many thought the series should end after season 13, which had a very bittersweet complete finale. This view was further cemented when seasons 15 through 17 were at best mediocre. With the quality of their shows declining and the shift to their suboptimal website, many viewers tuned out, but I wasn't one of them, not yet. While I didn't enjoy the shows as much as I used to, they were certainly not irredeemable. I disagree with many of their creative choices, but I still had hopes for the series. What made me cut off Rooster Teeth completely was their business decision, specifically the way they parted ways with Joel Heyman, one of their co-founders. Joel was a huge reason why I got into their live action stuff. I watched a couple of their earlier shorts and found him to be pretty funny. Episodes of RT Animated Adventure with him were extra hilarious too. And like a lot of RVB fans, I really liked Caboose, who was voiced by Joel. He was possibly my favorite among the 5 co-founders. I found him to be chaotically funny. However, I wasn't oblivious to the fact that his personal political views were not in line with RT's more progressive opinions. While I liked his performance in many RT projects, I didn't agree with him on certain subjects. Some of his tweets were unprofessional and may even be considered mean-spirited. Therefore, it was understandable that RT fired him sometime in 2020. I didn't have a problem with that. What I found unacceptable was the way they treated this termination. We only learned that Joel was no longer with RT through his reply to someone's comment on Twitter. He confirmed that he had been fired after he stopped showing up to work after a thing. Contrary to popular belief, I don't think Joel was fired because of his political opinions. From his reply, it would seem that he had some disagreement with RT, which led him to stop going to work, so RT fired him because he stopped showing up. However, his behavior definitely didn't help his case and possibly made RT's decision to fire him that much easier. If it were any of the other co-founders, RT would probably try to resolve the issue and keep them around, but because it was Joel, they possibly had less problem letting him go. However, this is just speculation on my part. We don't know what happened except for the little information Joel gave on Twitter, which was exactly the problem. If nobody asked, none of us would have known that Joel was fired. RT pretended like nothing happened, and I found that to be unacceptable. Like I said, I don't have a problem with them firing him, but at least thank him for his contribution or something. He was one of the co-founders, for crying out loud. But no, RT never mentioned this once, and they even started to purposefully leave Joel out when talking about the founders, as if he was never there. To make things worse, a part of the RT community thought good riddance and started talking about how Joel had always been nasty, racist, and toxic without any substantial proof. The tweets they brought up the most were him wishing someone broke into Gavin's home because he was anti-guns and cheering for cancer to kill somebody. Well, I too found those tweets to be inappropriate. My impression was that he was just trying to make a point. It was unnecessarily aggressive, but that didn't mean he was toxic in the workplace. There was also no actual proof that he was racist other than rumors. I find it disturbing that the fan base was so quick to denounce someone who helped start the company they loved. Like I said, I think firing him was understandable, but at least acknowledge that without him, the company wouldn't be where it was. I find how RT and its community treated this event to be extremely distasteful. It showed me that underneath the friendly, campy, we're all buddies facade, RT is actually a nasty company that would disown anyone and pretend like they never existed, even its co-founder. This wasn't the first time employees just disappeared without any explanation. There were many ex-employees who stopped showing up in their videos, and fans could only ask on Twitter or Reddit if they were still with the company. This wasn't a good look for a company whose success was partially due to the personality of its crew. You might say they're not required to announce anyone's departure. Well, that's true. The problem is that they actually did so for some employees. They even made a song and dance about how valuable they were and wished them good luck. The favoritism is painfully obvious. This is an extreme example, but when Bernie left the company to spend more time with his family, almost every single one of their staff tweeted how important and how much of an inspiration he was to the company. While Bernie was indeed the most important person to the formation of RT, the way they treated his departure was starkly different from the indifference to Joel's firing. Anyway, I cut off RT completely after they fired Joel and didn't say anything. I realized that their content wasn't good enough for me to stick around. The last thing I watched were Ruby Volume 7 and RVB Season 17, which were both mediocre at best. Prior to this, RT and its fandom had become increasingly aggressive toward people who criticize them or question their decisions. Ruby had always been notorious in this aspect. A part of the fanbase rejected all criticism, even legitimate ones, and was quite nasty toward people who criticized the show. Of course, there were also the Bumblebee shippers, who demanded their ship to be made canon despite the fact that Blake already had a romantic interest. They insisted that the relationship between Blake and Yang was romantic when it was clearly intended to be friendly from the start. I can never understand why people care so much about their ships being canon. I'm an avid shipper myself. I have at least one ship in everything I watch. However, I never wished for any of them to be canon. Shipping is supposed to be harmless, fun fantasies, but demanding it to be canon sucks the fun out of everything. For something to be canon, it has to make sense and be significant to the plot or character development. It can't be just, ooh, they are so cute together. I always thought the dynamic of the four main girls of Ruby was similar to the four main characters of Hunter x Hunter. 2 were more childish and 2 were more mature. A lot of people ship Gon and Killua or Kurapika and Leoleo, but you don't see them demanding it to be canon. Why? Because it'd be freaking weird if they were actually a couple. It's clear that these relationships are intended to be friendships. Forcing them to be romantically involved would just be weird. For me, shipping is fun exactly because it's not canon. I can fantasize about anything and not worry about whether or not it makes sense or works with the story/characters. To demand it is just baffling to me. Let the creators do their thing and focus on important stuff like story and characters instead of who frags who. I have nothing against shipping. I do it all the time. But like I said before, it's supposed to be harmless fun. Just enjoy the fan service, fan fictions, and fan art. Don't be an entitled asshole. I stopped watching Ruby after Volume 7, but from what I've heard, RT bent the knee and made Bumblebee canon. To make that happen, they wrote Sun out of the story for no freaking reason. It's forced and clearly not the original plan for either character. I don't just blame the fanatical shippers, I blame RT as well. They could have ignored these frantic fans and gone with the original story, yet they decided to pander to this portion of their fandom, which I don't believe was the majority of the audience. Most fans probably just wanted to see the story progress and plot holes fixed, but the story continued to drag for a couple of seasons, and instead of fixing things, they just kept creating new problems. Anyway, since the content wasn't good anymore and the company turns out to be not as genuine as it seemed, I completely dropped RT. I stopped watching their shows, I stopped listening to their songs, I just couldn't support them anymore. Turns out I bailed just in time before things got even uglier. After I stopped watching in 2020, RT began to be frequently featured in controversies. First, there were reports that they overworked their animation staff, which wasn't a good look for any company, especially one that pretended like they treated staff as family and friends. Next was the news that Ryan Haywood, a popular member of Achievement Hunter who was married with children, turned out to be an alleged sexual predator. Like many people, I don't believe that nobody in RT knew this, given that many of the victims were fans and the encounters happened during conventions. However, that's just speculation and it's possible that no one knew anything. Whatever the case, it was a bad look for RT, and while they disowned him as soon as they could, people began to believe that RT may not be as friendly and progressive as they seemed. On the business side of things, RT wasn't doing well either. Many of their shows flopped. Nobody liked RVB 0. Ruby wasn't pulling in the number they were hoping for despite the numerous crossovers with DC or even an actual anime made by Japan. Their membership pricing kept going up, and when fans voiced their frustration, RT poor shamed them like entitled Twitch thoughts. Not only did they up the price for their membership, they also moved Ruby to Crunchyroll exclusive for Volume 9, which basically rendered their memberships useless for Ruby fans. I'm sure there were other controversies, but these are the ones I remember. With substandard shows, troublesome staff, bad business decisions, and controversies after controversies, it came as no surprise when it was announced that RT would be shutting down. Aside from their radical fans, everyone else saw this coming, and it was met with mostly indifference, with a few "I told you so." It was true that RT was affected by the changing YouTube algorithm, which no longer favored short form videos, the majority of RT's content. However, it didn't help that the quality of their shows dwindled in the past few years, and they decided to paywall said shows. To be honest, most people checked out these shows only because they were free, so it was no wonder that they left, especially when the production value didn't improve. Those who stuck around were disappointed again and again, and it hurt to learn that RT's main goal was no longer to provide fun content, but to squeeze as much money as they could out of you. Personally, I was done with RT when I realized they were no longer just a group of friends making fun videos to entertain people, yet they pretended they were because it was their branding. There was a time when fans dreamed about working for RT because of how fun it seemed, but it turned out to be a facade. When the success of your company was mostly based on the personalities of your staff and how down to earth you were, you ruined your brand when you turned out to be just another corporation. I left because I couldn't stand the hypocrisy. I was going to watch the final season of RVB, but I'm completely fine if it doesn't happen now that they're shutting down. RT have been deaf to me for a while now, and I honestly don't care about what will happen to their IPs. I feel bad for normal fans who just want to see Ruby have a proper ending. I believe there are still fans like that. But I don't feel bad or sad for RT at all. It didn't have to end this way, and ultimately, they brought this onto themselves. So goodbye, Rooster Teeth. You had it coming. Anyway, hope you guys like this new format. I can say I enjoyed doing this video very much. I was quite furious when I was typing my script. However, the nails were much easier to do, and I'm happy I got to try a different method of doing ombre. Let me know if you like to see me cover more news, or maybe you like my reviews better. Either way, as always, like, subscribe, comment, share, do what you want. Keep nailing it, and don't be a cockbite like Rooster Teeth people.